Hello, I'm Steve. A little about myself. I'm a retired law enforcement officer with 20 years of service. I began my career in the jail, worked the road, and became an investigator. During my career, my training consisted of everything from SWAT to becoming a state certified crime scene technician. I've investigated crimes from thefts to homicides. After retiring and becoming aware of true crime and web sleuths, I started my channel for web sleuths to better understand the perspectives of law enforcement. Not only do we cover true crime, I go out into the field and assist families who have lost loved ones to homicide and their cases are considered cold. Join me as we look and bring attention to these critical cases.
Hello, everyone. Glad you're able to join us tonight. We're going to be talking a little bit about Crum tonight and the case that Larry has been the father been pursuing for 40 years. And but as always, I want everyone in chat to absolutely be respectful of mods, families, and each other. And what happened is we, as always, these morning watch shows, we have a short presentation and then we just start answering questions in chat. A little bit different than our normal shows. And for the last week, we've been off the air because I was out in Texas, of course, working on the Amber Crum cold case. And want to thank everyone that has supported this channel in so many different ways, from watching to the donations to the thumbs up to the members, those who support us in so many different ways. Like I said, absolutely, without you, this direction of where we went with this channel would not be accomplished without your support. And but anyway, let's see who's all in chat right now and say hi to a few people, and then we'll get with the presentation. All right, Slinging Lead, good to see you. CJK, CJ Mack, got a new member. Normally Mrs. Steve is here and she's able to do that for me, but on the morning watch, I have it solo, so y'all just have to bear with me. Princess, good to see you. Cunningham. Yes, the youngins are up late tonight. Absolutely. There's Dave. Good to see you. Jocelyn. That's Carolyn. Good to see you. She was a great part of the team last week and worked extremely hard. And you'll see an image of her tonight. Debbie, good to see you. T. Southern Guy True Crime. Good evening. Good to see you. And Southern Guy, if you would, sometime this week, send me an email. I'd appreciate it. And True Crime Talk with Frank Meister's here. Robin, Danger Dave, WL22, Cynthia, good to see you. Kowalski, and Dwayne's Prospecting Adventures. And Sharon says hello. I enjoy seeing you and the two ladies on the other show earlier. Yes, Chris had a great show, did a great premiere, and of course we appreciate all his help on everything that he did for us in Texas, and especially Carolyn and her sister, that we wouldn't have been able to accomplish half. We wouldn't even be able to accomplish half of what we were able to do with their assistance. All right. With that being said, just want to show everybody a few things of what went on out there, a few slides. This here is Chris and Larry as they were working and clearing out some of the area in the backyard of the residence that we was looking at in Texas. It was overgrown, of course, and for us to get the equipment in that Carolyn brought to the area on that ERI, that had to have a certain amount of clearing done. And everybody pitched in, worked hard. They worked diligently and was able to get the 3 lines run that Carolyn needed, and what she has sent to us and our show last night, as she explained some of the uh, findings that were in the backyard. And then, of course, Chris's show tonight was about the first 3 days and then going into the crawl space where it flipped the all the information on its head and refocused us on some very important findings that we had. And let's see what else we got here. And of course, this is some of the charts. Don't ask me how to read them, other than Carolyn said that there's great data within these charts, and there's some anomalies that need to be checked out. And at some point, if the findings from the crawl space are not as um, big or as or the possibilities of what they are determined to be non-human, then of course will we be refocusing on this backyard area. And this is some of the hazards that Carolyn and them went into, all the insulation and stuff that was in that crawl space, and the work conditions that they were in when they went into the crawl space of the residence. And here's Larry, of course. Like I said, he's been fighting for 40 years. Um, and I spoke to him earlier today, and, he, as always, was appreciative, but also extremely emotional about some of the things and of being there and searching for his daughter. But he worked 10 times harder than any of us, and absolutely is dedicated to attempting to find his daughter, as any good father would. And then here is Carolyn, and taking a selfie over her shoulder down to where Larry is working in the light. She was up stream as far as collecting some soil samples. Everyone there um, had duties to do throughout the day, and absolutely everything was volunteer. And she was, regardless of what area you were in at any one point in time, there were certain things to be done, and everybody teamed up, worked together, and it was very successful. And some of the other items that were covered in there was this piece of strange looking debris cloth. Um, and we have that in for analysis if we need it. And this is the depression in the crawl space that was out of place. This is an anomaly. There's ever, speaking with Carolyn, she says there's nothing in nature that would have um, um, resulted in this. Everything about this was something that appears to be a, you know, a depression that was dug out and then backfilled. And what was in there at any one point in time, we don't currently know, but we've got a bunch of testing to do. Here's a pile of charcoal. And of course, this is just showing the work area again. And here's Larry over there working in the that depression area and making some discoveries. On the right, there's a little arrow pointing towards what appears to be a bone. We Several bones were collected from this crawl space, but we don't know if they're animal bones or human bones. And law enforcement, the bones they collected all came back um, animal or non-human, and so there's still a lot of testing to do. So now let me get caught back up at chat, and then we'll get into just talking about whatever y'all want to talk about. Let's see. Hello, Debbie. Good to see you. And T, I'm glad you're able to catch a live tonight. Uh, Dave, I'm glad you're back. Had to listen to Ruckus all week. That's all right. WL became a YouTube member. Thank you. Appreciate it. Um, some of that may be renewals on some of those, but we always appreciate anyone's support. And let's see here. Let's see here. What's going on? Um, Good evening, Mr. Steve. This is from Ty's Kitchen. I haven't been following the Amber case, but have you thought about covering the House of Horrors in Oklahoma? McFadden, poor policing, investigating, and letting him free. No, I'm unfamiliar with those that case. I will have to look that up. Let me make note of it. There's so many cases out there, and as I work on them, and as I have a list of suggestions of looking at a lot of code cases, and so I will look at them. Steve, have you ever heard of someone leaving an emergency roadside kit bag in a tailpipe of a disabled car? No, I haven't, but that doesn't mean that somebody wouldn't do that. That is interesting. Um, huh. Oh, yeah. And Chris, of course. Can never leave Chris out. She's still working on some reports and everything for the final, so that I can get it into the case file. Mr. Steve, this is from Ann. I am just blown away by what the team accomplished as an all volunteer force. It is just amazing. And it is, absolutely. And as always, you know, I have to give credit to those responsible. We wouldn't have been able to do everything we did without our support from the foundation and from everyone that has watched this channel and donated to this channel. Without y'all, um, you know, the room, board, food, and everything that we've had to buy and purchase, you know, I wish I was independently wealthy. I'm not, but with that, y'all's support, this wouldn't have happened. And so our team is far greater than just the 5 individuals that were at the residence. The homeowners became part of the team. They helped, very supportive, um, or the property owners out there. And so there was a lot of people that came together. And we just have to be appreciative of all of them. Yes, Chris did an amazing job on his video tonight. Absolutely. I look forward to seeing the others. Um, then tomorrow night, I'm supposed to have another one of the team members on, Christina, to discuss everything that she did, um, because she played a vital role in several areas, everything from collecting and copying some files for me, and also as a liaison with the property owners. Um, and, there's just so much to this to be done. It's not a simple thing of trying to gather, a group of people from across the country, from Utah, Wisconsin, um, Illinois, Indiana, Georgia, and as we move forward and go back to Texas, I've got other people that will be assisting us. And this is the thing that when you have a geophysicist look at a anomaly involving soil, and they can't explain it, that it's something that's not natural and wouldn't occur naturally, then of course it has to have some type of interaction by human and by the hand of human. And so, why would someone dig such a depression? and what was in that depression at some point. And hopefully we'll be able to answer that in the coming days. Still a lot of work to do. And she says, I have a theory about how it was created. It's not natural. Jocelyn, I hope that you have a little bit more uh, that just Steve and Chris and our live shows. But I absolutely do support or appreciate your support. And y'all are absolutely worth every moment of our time trying to um, assist us and what content we can create to further the cause is what we want to do. There was a lot of people that the finger bone would not turn out to be animal, and it was, and I don't know which bone. When they contacted us the next day, we don't know which bone they decided was unidentifiable. Um, there was several. I think they picked up at least 3 bones that we know of, and maybe more, but we know they got at least 3 of them. And there was a hair collected that, and I don't know how Carolyn was able to find that hair in this work environment. And think about that. You see where um, they're working at, and then the conditions of all this, um, and this mound that Carolyn is able to spot a single hair. Appears to be blind. It was probably 3 or 4 inches long. Law enforcement has it. We haven't heard about it. There was nothing said about what classification, if it was some type of animal hair or if it was even human, or is there anything they can do with it. But we're going to find out hopefully as we move forward. Steve, can you please fill us on what happened when Chris allegedly ran you over? Well, what happened was I was standing with my back to the driveway, and the residents, as you come, there's a construction zone, and as you drive down, the driveway just pops out and appears right on your right if you're unfamiliar with the residents. And Chris had overshot the driveway. He went too far, so he backed it up what he thought was a adequate distance, and then turned right and uh, and had miscalculated his turn radius into the driveway. And as he was coming from the roadway into the driveway, the homeowner saw that he was about to go into a ditch and started screaming, "No, no, no, no." And I thought I could hear his car, and I thought, well, okay. And I was waiting for the homeowner to start running, and um, you never take your eyes off of who is alert, and because they know which way it's coming, and you can waste time by looking over your shoulder. So I was watching him to see when he took off running because I was going to follow him. But once he stood there and started pointing, I looked over my shoulder, and Chris was up on 2 wheels in the ditch, and he gunned it, and he popped out of that ditch and came up. And now he missed me, but it was fun aggravating him that he almost ran over me on. I think it's like day 2, but it was uh, when he got out of the car, his eyes were wide, and he was just like if you had run into a ditch. Uh, Katrina, do you believe Amber was placed under the house until the ground thawed out? That most certainly is a possibility. This depression makes no sense. And there has been cases of people um, doing such acts um, under porches, um, barns, crawl spaces, and the weather conditions are very supportive of such an act to occur. That if you have to have some area to hide or um, bury a person, that this area would be protected, and there would be some residual heating from the house that would make this ground far um, more conducive to digging than the outside ground, which was exposed to the elements. And the cold weather conditions for Dallas, Texas at that time, I believe, was at least 2 weeks, if not a little bit more, prior to Amber being reported missing, that it was below freezing every day. Um, Oftentimes, in the teens with wind chills below zero. And it was just one of those things. They say it was the worst ice storm in 40 years for that area. And it continued even after Amber was reported missing for several days. And so it was just one of those anomalies. And that was one of the reasons that brought us to the crawl space, trying to find some of that protected area where someone could. I appreciate it, Mike. Appreciate your support. It means a lot to us. Actually, I've got to um, uh, I'm getting a list of equipment. We had some equipment that got damaged that we've got to replace and buy some more equipment for Carolyn, uh, and to make sure that there's no losses to anyone. Why do some articles link David Penton with Amber's case? And that is interesting that there was, but his profile and those victims that he saw was a little bit different. Um, and and he was a person of interest. And law enforcement always looks at the registered offenders. They look at family, and they would look at other active people that had committed other crimes to other children. And and but um, as I will speak with Larry about this on the Saturday show, and and probably will be able to answer it a little bit better and from his perspective, because he knows far more details about this case and all the persons of interest. Because even Larry was a person of interest the first day or two, um, because Amber's mother and her boyfriend, of course, pointed the finger at Larry. And the FBI came to Larry's home and then informed him and of the situation. And after finding out that he was not involved, then of course it switches back to the family in Dallas and any other suspects that might be in Texas. Mr. Stephen, your professional opinion, do you think this child has been found? Um, that's, we had some great hope uh, the other day when they were talking, especially when the medical examiner looked at some of the pictures and said that that was a finger bone. Everyone's heart skipped several beats. Um, some of the items I have currently found from that area has to be evaluated, and I just don't want to get anyone's hopes up that it in any shape, form, or fashion. Because Larry, that whenever I do uh, have the data that is supporting, I will personally go to Larry, and he will be the first one to know um, what we have found. And so right now, um, it's 50-50 on anything and everything. But we brought back a lot of materials from that crawl space, and we're looking at a lot of materials. And if any of it is determined to be human, then of course um, that will be looked into further by law enforcement, and we'll see where it goes from there. But right now, it's just 50-50. I wish I could absolutely tell you yes, but we can't because there's a lot of things in all cases that you have to look at, and you apply the rules and what's probable, and that's what makes you go down certain avenues. Um, what we found in the crawl space has the highest probability of that it has to be follow up on to determine if it is, and we just don't know now. Hope to have that answer soon. Uh, yes, if you have yard work to be done, they are a great team to go out there and work on it. Yes, Robin said, I can only imagine the knowledge you guys have gained on this trip. The first is always a learning experience, and it goes smoother each time. Prepare for more successful searching. Yeah, yes. And that's the thing is that any of these cold cases you look at, the families are appreciative. Like Larry, he's been looking for 40 years. And this is the first opportunity that he's had to go to that property and search an area that's never been searched before, according to the private investigator that was there in the first early days of the investigation and has been uh, in the state of Texas the whole time. And so his knowledge of the case, and he's worked on it since day one and still is employed by Larry, uh, basically free for of what he committed to this case. And it's one of those cases that when I was speaking to him, he said it still haunts him, and it will haunt him to his dying day. And I believe him. He's extremely intelligent, extremely hardworking, and done some good work on this case. And hopefully, we will find out some answers. But yes, I've got, even when I get through processing the soil and processing whatever this mound of collection of what is on top of that soil that you see here, it's just a mass of, um, it would be everything from um, the insulation to whatever you can find in crawl space is in this mass. And can you talk a little bit about how you approached the homeowners and got their consent? That's pretty amazing when you think about it. Thanks. What happened was, of course, Larry contacted me, and um, and so we spoke about the case, and I started doing some research. And from that point, after I got some knowledge of it on this channel, I reached out to people in the YouTube crime web universe, and I had a private investigator, Tanya, from the Dallas, Texas area, reach out to me and said that she was from that area and would absolutely assist me in any way that she could. And she did some further research and absolutely came up with a case file that was very, very well put together, and sent it to me. And I looked at that, and then um, she was able to obtain phone numbers, and also I requested that she go to the residents and speak to the homeowners, which she did, and advised them of who I was and what we was looking for, and that Larry was the father, and we were trying to find Amber, who was um, had been missing for 40 years. And so Tanya was able to obtain the phone number for me, and I contacted them. And speaking to them, they thought that the case had been solved because uh, in the 90s, after acquiring the property, they were their children were playing in the backyard near a duck pond and found a fitted type crib sheet blanket, or it was part of a combo. But anyway, found a crib sheet with some bones, and and turned them over to their mother and father, who contacted law enforcement. And from there, they thought that it was solved. And when I explained to them that it wasn't, and we started in the process of getting permission to look. And it took us a couple of months. So there were some conflicts, but eventually we were able to go there and search it this last week. And it was an amazing trip. Yes, I in those crawl spaces, I couldn't get under there, and I most certainly couldn't have gotten to the areas where Carolyn and Larry were able to. And the medical examiner was unable also to get to certain areas, and they chose to select certain bones and and process certain areas. Um, I will look at that. Um, there's, there's always failures. It's sad to see sometimes. Let's see. Betsy says, Cynthia, thank you for the membership. I take it Cynthia has been giving memberships, and we absolutely thank you. Appreciate your support. Oh, okay. I've still got to get with you on that. Send me an email, and let's uh, 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 exchange some emails there, Dave. And to send me an email, it's steve@truecrimeweb.com. Okay, so that was very generous of Cynthia for donating 5 memberships. Thank you. I knew someone would put it in chat. I'm not as good at this. Mrs. Steve is able to keep up her computer and do all this for me. Um, there was a Waffle House nearby, but I always asked the ones that were working the hardest, Carolyn and her sister and Larry and Chris, where they wanted to eat. And so there was IHOP right next door to where we were staying. And so we had 2 meals at the IHOP, which was as close as I could get to a Waffle House. But there was a Waffle House close by. I just did not get a chance to get in there. And the hotel we were staying at had a breakfast every morning, so we were able to do that. All the workers, like I said, they got a breakfast and a supper. It's almost like a chain gang. They get 2 good meals a day. No, there was not a tip. It was just the weather conditions and looking at it from a law enforcement perspective and of of the weather conditions when I first saw that, and then speaking with a private investigator, and because he even in his notes he noted it that, of the weather conditions that were uh, part of even the morning that Amber went up. It was extremely harsh. I think that morning in his notes he put it down as like 18 degrees and sub-zero, and um, as far as wind chill, and so in those conditions and knowing that it would be the ground would be frozen from the previous freezes for the multiple days. There's only so many places that you can dispose of any type of body, and crawl spaces is one of them. And then when I spoke with Carolyn about it, she also agrees with that. As a side note, my grandma uh, had a crawl space like that, and then on one Sunday, a couple of us kids decided to crawl under there and dig out a place to make a fort. It didn't last long or get very big, laughing out. And I would imagine that your fort was pretty close to the entryway, where this location was almost inaccessible, and the conditions would. It's not so much for where you would expect a child to do that, but we'll see what Carolyn says about if that's even a possibility, because it is something that you should consider. Yes, Cynthia. Carolyn is the one that brought the technology of the ERI and equipment and expertise to our search. No, Dave, we went to IHOP twice. I know it. I should have took pictures. Was this the home of the mother's boyfriend? Yes, it was. Um, I have no doubt that if anything comes of this, absolutely, if it gets to trial, then yes, we'll all be part of this. Law enforcement did 4 interviews of 4 of the 5 team members. Larry was the only one that wasn't on the scene when law enforcement showed up. He was back at the motel, and of course, they had his number, but they didn't choose to interview him. Now they interviewed the 4 team members of Chris, Carolyn, Christina, and the property owners and myself. They did the property owners at the site, but the rest of us went down to some offices to be interviewed. Golden Fire, thank you for your support. Appreciate that. Fifty-fifty is better than nothing. I know Larry was very grateful to be able to go under the house for the first time in 4 years. I know he couldn't wait. Absolutely, he did. And when I was speaking to him tonight, he was pretty emotional about it, and even made the comment that he was able to speak with Amber and tell her bye, and because he always wanted to have the ability to search for her at this residence, and we were able to bring that part of it uh, to to close. Now we will possibly be going back to this property in the future. Um, just don't know when. A lot of it depends on what findings we have. Yes, these current homeowners been there since the '90s. In the early '90s is when they found the crib sheet and stuff. All heck broke loose while you were in Texas. Absolutely. And what are the odds? Now, I've been to Dallas, Texas before, but this was the first time I ever called 911. And the one time that I need 911, well, it gets hacked. Now, the horror story would have been is if Chris had run over me and we need 911 and it was hacked. But that wasn't the case. But we still had to wait. You know, they were down to pen and paper, dispatching the cars due to the ransomware. Um, yes, I'm so far behind on comments. I've been processing soil and everything, and everybody just have to bear with me until I can get caught up on everything. Still doing long days. Um, there are certain areas of the floor that has been in the past, or have been in the past, cut and get access to lower in crawl space. But I spoke with Carolyn specifically about that area, and she said that what areas she was able to look up and see, she didn't see anything that showed any type of cutouts. Doesn't mean that they weren't, just didn't see those because the house is um, um, not in the best of shape. No, I don't have any on the Springfield 3 currently. Um, there were several cases that we wanted to look at while we were in Texas, but we just ran out of time. Um, when when the team first met up on Sunday, um, the we got rooms for at least 3 days, and then on Wednesday we decided, well, we're going to be here to Friday, and then on Friday we decided we're going to be there to Saturday. And by the time that we used up all our time, they wasn't able to go and stop by and work any other cases. But I don't have anything currently on Springfield 3. Yeah, I know that we discussed it, and I don't know what part of the floor, but there was a certain area of the floor that had been cut out by the property owners at one time, but it wasn't in that area. And you are correct. Even law enforcement spoke about that possibility, and I'm sure that if any of those bones had been identified as human, then of course the flooring would have come out. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Mr. Steve, I hope the IHOP crowd was a little more law-abiding than the typical Waffle House you've told us stories about. Yes, and it was very nice people. Triple S. I almost froze to death in that blizzard because my mom wouldn't build a fire. Oh my goodness. Um, that's right. You're just outside of there. I think we had discussed that at one point. I couldn't even. Um, um, the days were so long that we got up early, and um, normally we ate somewhere around 8, and we couldn't get to the work site until 10. But once we got to the work site, it was, you know, you might as well. They worked extremely hard all through the day and then into the evening, and so we didn't get back to the room due to the traffic and stuff till almost dark every night, and then we went to eat after that. Let me see if I can get caught up here. They moved out somewhere in the early 90s. Um, yes, and that's possible. And I think that if anything had came back human, then because the medical examiner did call Larry uh, the next morning, and because we had given them Larry's phone number the night before. But yeah, so the medical examiner called him and told him the results were negative. No, law enforcement really didn't tell us anything other than if it was human remains, they would come back. And um, we never heard anything else from them. Yes, boyfriend and mother pointed the finger at Larry. Ann says, am I remember correctly that the mother's boyfriend was tried and acquitted? Thanks. No, what it was from my speaking with Tanya, who is the PI that's helping on the case whenever I need something out there. Her explanation of it is here in Georgia, we have what is called probable cause hearings. They have a different name for them in Texas. And so the judge was listening to that if they had enough to proceed with a court trial. And that judge determined since the mother, uh, uh, Stephanie, had changed her story from um, describing a child that would be deceased, as she told law enforcement and the private investigator. But when she got to being during the trial part of it and discussing it during this hearing, she flipped the story and said that she was coerced by law enforcement, and therefore the judge throwed it out and no supporting evidence, and they dropped the case. Never went to full trial or jury. Yeah. Uh, but yeah, it shook Chris up for a minute or two because he was worried about a car. And like I said, I can't believe he didn't tear his car up. He was on two wheels when he was coming through that ditch. Oh, thank you, Dave. Yes, um, Mrs. Steve contacted me. I think it was on Wednesday while I was out there, and I had reached 10K then. And yes, Holly, the homeowners did not have to let us do that. Let's see what's going on here. I agree, and that double jeopardy has not been attached. Um, and there was a witness in the parking lot that when the boyfriend pulled up and parked his truck in a location that he later changed the story, but the witness in the parking lot says he never saw anyone in the truck, amber or otherwise, and but they um, paid no attention to his testimony and and didn't give it any credit. And sadly, that witness has passed away since that time. Was his car okay? Yes, it was. How I don't know, but because he drove it all the way back to Utah, and I hadn't heard of anything else that has happened to it. But how it kept from getting harmed, I have no idea. Now, this is someone that's been to the Waffle House. You cannot get a grilled cheese sandwich better than a Waffle House on an unscraped grill. You get all the flavors. True. Oh, okay, Cynthia. Thank you. Congratulations on another milestone, reaching 10K. Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate your support. That is awesome. Do you think she could have been gone missing the day before or so that they reported? I think she went missing sometime after the description that her mother gave the night of December the 25th. Sometime during the night. Before or after midnight, I couldn't tell you. But I do believe it was during that time period. No, I mean, if you watch Chris's video he did a couple nights ago, he's doing video of driving across some beautiful country um, out west as he's heading towards Texas. But the coming down the street and turning in and trying to run me down, he has no video. Now that may or may not be true, but he hasn't offered any video of that. And these people, yes, many thanks to the homeowners, uh, and absolutely because they didn't have to do this, and they stepped up and even um, assisted us in cleaning and resources that we wouldn't have had without, and offered to let us use their showers and everything else because there was times that it was there was absolutely Larry was covered with everything imaginable, and so was Carolyn. Sharon said it's really odd that the police records were lost. And do I think that they're absolutely lost forever? Probably not, because um, in 40 years, governments change buildings, new buildings are built, and things get shifted. And but one of the explanations that was given to me by Tanya that I hadn't thought of was that if at some point they digitized everything, because Dallas has been hit with data losses before. And so, is that something that could have occurred on some of the cases that they digitized everything and then they had some type of data loss? It could be, and that may be what had to happen. Just don't know. I don't have any interviews of anyone from law enforcement or otherwise on this case. Larry has a strong opinion of exactly what happened that night. And criminal med connections filed wrong. That's as likely as anything. Um, Dave said, heard Piggly Wiggly the other day. I almost jumped out of my chair. I hadn't heard Piggly Wiggly in so long. Yes, and Ann says that they're pretty impressive that the Dallas medical examiner was so responsive. I mean, that's a big time medical examiner's department, and it was. And they stepped up and were quick on getting the information to us and analyzed, and hopefully it's correct. Um, but like I said, when they um, didn't continue with the search, and we had to make a decision of what we were going to do, and we couldn't walk away from a 40-year-old case without collecting what we could, and we did, and hopefully we find out something, and if so, we'll become the chain of custody and get it back to them. All right, let's see what else we got here. Yeah, Let's see here. The only piece of evidence I really want to see now is that hair. I don't know, like I said, I don't if they were able to identify as human or not, but it'd be interesting. Um, All right. Well, guys, been almost an hour. If anybody's got any more questions, I'll be glad to answer them. I've got a long day tomorrow, and so we'll get out there um, and like I said, there's so much stuff to process, and the rest of the team is waiting on information about the items I found, and that we have to get um, some experts to look at this week. Hopefully, I'll have everything from these first um, uh, analysis of the soil and gathering everything that I could from the soil and get the doctors to look at it. Hopefully, we'll have some information by Friday. And I think Chris has another couple of series on his documentary, and I'm looking forward to that. And we'll see where it goes from there. All right. And you're right. Having dealt with multiple data sources from index cards to computer, they will turn up once the right person gets on them. Um, you're absolutely correct. Um, because actually, that's pretty much what happened with the Delphi case. The right person finally looked at the some of the tips. Thank you, Cynthia. And but yes, I want to thank everybody, especially everybody with the team, and Larry, and all the people that were here tonight, and all our supporters. Absolutely means a lot to this channel, and we couldn't do it without you. And I look forward to working with them in the future. But um, we are working on getting the transcripts of that hearing. I think there's like 300 something page transcripts, and we're working on trying to find it also. But anyway, guys, y'all take care, and I'll see y'all soon. Be careful, and thank you